Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins! He is the high jumper!
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. He is Ryan Hollins. You can find him on Twitter at the Ryan Hollins. You can see him on ESPN. You can see him on Clippers broadcast, at least for a little bit longer. And you can hear him on NBA radio. What else am I missing? Anything else? Your resume is so long. Your work list is so long.
Yahoo the Bounce.
Yahoo the Bounce. Will you be, this is Ryan Hollins. Ryan, will you be covering the Clippers? Will you be doing Clippers broadcasts postseason?
Yeah, so apparently, it's funny you said that. I asked the question already. The team makes the playoffs. You know, obviously ESPN will cover the games, but Fox Sports will also
first round
have coverage.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, first round, and then I think second round, maybe some of second round too. I can't remember where the breaking point is, but then conference finals and finals is all national stuff. All right, so the NCAA tournament has begun. Not that Ryan Hollins knows that. We have an NCAA bracket challenge just for Bucher and Friends listeners. Check out our Twitter feed at Bucher Friends. By the way, that's where you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. And you can join us. And we've got a couple cash prizes. Not a whole lot of money, just $60 for the winner. $30 for second place and $10 for third, unless Ryan decides to amplify that with his treasure. But you have not even filled out a bracket, and you're acting as if you're not going to, that you're, because of all these responsibilities you have, that you're just too busy. I think, honestly, you're scared. I think.
Well, isn't it too late? Like, didn't the game start?
No. Well, the play-in games have started, but the way the bracket is set up, these games don't matter. As long as you get it in by tomorrow, by the first game on Thursday, you're all good. Because the way the bracket is set up is that the 6 seeds are playing the winner. You pick the winner of the 6 seed versus whoever wins the playoff game. You don't have to decide, or the play-in game rather. You don't have to decide who you're picking among the play-in game teams. So you still have time, as of the time that we're recording this podcast. It's not too late. Get with our producer; he'll take care of it.
Maybe we should do it as the pod goes.
What's that?
Maybe that's what.
I know you like to multitask while we're doing the pod.
I feel like you're telling me to do that.
But I am not telling you to do that. I'm not encouraging your multitasking while we're doing the podcast, because I do want to get into your experience in the tournament. Because you, if I'm not mistaken, you went 2 years, correct?
To the tournament?
Yes.
Yeah, it was 2 years, yep.
The first year, you guys got bounced by Texas Tech in the first round, and then the second year, you went all the way to the final. Am I correct?
Honestly, I was hating on your sports knowledge. I'm very impressed right now.
You lost to Florida.
I didn't want to believe that you were that on par with what was going on. No, you're right.
So you guys made this tremendous run, and this is you started your career at UCLA where you guys weren't making the tournament. You guys didn't even have a winning record. I mean, you were part of a resurgence of the UCLA program, if you will.
Rick, this is a time when your basketball knowledge really comes to irritate me. We don't need to go back to those bad days, Rick.
Why are those bad days? I'm thinking they ended with good days.
Well, they did end with good days. Hold on. Do you know everything about basketball?
No.
Like, what don't you know?
Far from it. I'm usually not I'm not a historian. I feel like I understand
You sound
the game.
like one right now.
I know I do. Well, I do my homework on occasion. So with this in mind, what was more heartbreaking? Getting to the tournament, finally getting to the tournament after 3 years, getting to the tournament and then losing in the first round, or getting all the way to the final and then losing and not being able to enjoy one shining moment?
You know, it's interesting. I'll never sacrifice making it to the finals. That's an amazing feat. But I feel like you get the same credit for losing in the finals as a team that got beat in the Final Four. Somehow winning one game at the Final Four means absolutely nothing. But you get all the accolades just for, we were a Final Four team.
Yes.
But to go there and actually get a win,
yes,
bro, there's not a shred of Ryan Hollins at UCLA right now. I may have as well never gone there. Never.
Really? There's nothing that marks your time there.
No. You'd have to search. You had to do something. Like what I did meant nothing.
Wow. That is surprising. I mean, there's the banner, right? There's got to be a banner up someplace.
They don't do league banners.
Wow.
They don't do league banners.
Well, now I'm not talking about a league banner. I'm talking about Final Four banner.
They don't do those.
Uh-huh. And there's no photo of the team that went to the final? Nothing?
No.
Nothing up on the wall.
I mean, there may be. I mean, the biggest memory is I know they're going to replay our game against Gonzaga.
Okay.
So, people will text him oh, that was a nice steal you had, or a good little point, or oh, we saw your free throws. That's about it.
Right. And you guys played in Oakland, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were in the in what is now Oracle Arena. That's where you guys played?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow. How different is an NCAA tournament game to a regular season college game?
Well, Rick, it is different because you got to assume. Think about it like this: 3/4 of the crowd may be your actual audience, if not less. And if you're not a team that is, your first time in the tournament, or they think you're going to win it, or the team that just doesn't travel well, you may not have anybody there. And then half the crowd is neutral, bro. So you'll get teams just cheering, or fans just cheering for a good game, but there's a real awkward silence that you're not used to versus either being the home team or being the away team that you just kind of play through, and there's just a lot of awkward moments and chatter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I would also think that you're playing teams that you've never seen necessarily played before or seen other than on tape, and that you have officials that officiate the game different than the ones you're used to seeing in the Pac-12 or the Pac-10. I guess it was the Pac-10 when you were there. Yeah,
It's survival of the fittest. You don't know what you're going to get out the refs because, you're right. You will not have your own refs.
Yeah. With the run that you made, and by the way, you never really answered the question. How heartbreaking was it to finally make the tournament and then get knocked out in the first round?
To me, it wasn't heartbreaking, because it wasn't my senior year. But
right.
To me, I'll be honest, I was kind of frustrated with the seniors in that year. And that I felt for their last time ever playing basketball in the UCLA jersey, I felt like they didn't leave everything on the floor that they should have. And I feel like I felt like my terms of service were for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna knock somebody because how they felt or how they played, but I just felt like in my senior year, you're gonna get everything. You're gonna get I'm gonna die on the floor trying to go as far as I can.
Do you go back and forth with one of those seniors on Twitter, even now?
Are you talking about Josiah?
Yeah.
Well, Josiah wasn't really playing big minutes, or if not even playing at all in those moments. But that's my guy. Okay. But I'm trying to think, man. I don't know if Josiah walked away from the team or he finished or whatever. He wasn't in the rotation, or he was just man, I'm cool on it. There was just so much nonsense going on.
Right. Well, it's got him with 9 games. I mean, he averaged under 3 minutes a game.
Yeah, just things, Joe got a lot of minutes his junior year, but his senior year, he didn't play him a lot because Joe was the power forward, and he slid Dejon Thompson over to the power forward spot, and Dejon really excelled, so that killed Joe's minutes,
Yeah. Well, it's also, keep in mind you guys were the 11th seed. Texas Tech was 6th, so it wasn't as if losing to them was an upset.
They weren't better than us
at that
point. They had 3 toughest nails, or 2, I want to say, 6'2", 6'3" guards.
Yeah,
that were just tougher than us, but they weren't better. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't better. Like we didn't look on paper. Like their center was about 6'8". Like there was nothing that they had that was like they should have like dominated us or beat us handily.
So you're not really a devotee when it comes to the NCAA tournament, but I wonder, as you played in the tournament, could you gauge opponents as far as who was going to be going or who was ready to go to the next level based on what you saw in the tournament, playing against them in the tournament?
Yeah. I mean, the tournament, how would I put this, Rick? It's primal. And you go walking around, you find out who's an alpha and who's not. You find out who's going to show up and who's not. And half the tournament is just being ready. Half the tournament is just stepping on somebody's throat and not giving them a chance to make a play.
Right.
Half the battle is just being perfect. Now, you can play a perfect college game. It's hard to play a perfect pro game. Everybody kind of, but you can play a perfect college game. Not miss an assignment, block every shot, get every, you can have these perfect possessions. And to me, that's what it was. And like the dudes who could, like, our team was elite defensively. I think we went down in history defensively at the Final Four or Elite Eight, whatever it was. We set some NCAA records. And if you gave us a dub, you were about that life. And the one guy I will point back to, obviously that Florida team, but that we played. But I looked at Adam Morrison. I said, this dude is special, bro. Because we beat them in a comeback. But when I say he gave us the business, oh, man. Like you had to be a pro, Rick. Like you had to have jumper, right hand, left hand, post game, passing ability. You had to have it all. Adam Morrison had it all. And he gets a bad knock, man. That's really not fair because there are some other things going on with Adam.
Yeah.
And he's a good dude, man.
Yes, he is.
Misunderstood. But he was the real deal, Rick. If what you're saying is like, how'd you know a guy was like the guy? Like, he was the real deal.
So when he got drafted by Charlotte, what was it, 2nd or 3rd? I think it was 3rd.
Do you know who got drafted with him?
I'd have to go back and look at that draft. I'm
Take a wild guess.
Oh, really?
Take a really wild, obvious guess. How about that? That'd help.
I don't know
Take
why.
a real obvious guess to who was drafted with Adam Morrison to the same team. A real obvious, in-your-face guess.
Drafted to the same team?
Mm-hmm. With him. Give me an obvious guess right now. It's very obvious.
Was
what
he
would be
sitting
obvious?
Is he sitting in front of me?
Right in front of you.
I just didn't know for certain. I didn't want to go down that road.
No, same here. No, I wouldn't give you a question like obviously like there's a.
Well, at first I was thinking you were saying who was drafted that.
It was too. No.
year.
It was too obvious. Yeah. No. It was too obvious. Yeah. No. I was drafted with Adam.
So when he went as high as he did, like you didn't have a problem with that. You were thinking that was the Andre
so
Bargnani draft.
He was so good. Yeah. We just didn't have player development in the NBA like that at the time. And Adam was the last guy in and the first guy out.
He was, he gave you guys 24 in that. I remember that. That was the game he cried, right?
It was 24 buckets.
Yeah.
And karma comes back around. You want to know why? And it's a good story. Me and Aaron Afalo were the two guys before his own teammates that picked him up off the floor. And instead of celebrating the win, we went over and picked Adam up as he was crying.
I remember that now.
And I actually got a Dove commercial because of it. I don't know if you recognize. I'm sure you remember that. They're probably going to spin it again. But he was on the floor crying, and his teammates didn't come over. And we, instead of celebrating, I just had the utmost respect for what this dude did. Like, you know, when someone gives you the business, and it was like, I could easily be the guy crying on the floor because my career is done. You know what I'm saying? Or I lost the game.
That's good
and
stuff.
It wasn't me. And I wanted to let him know he had nothing to be ashamed of. We respect the heck out of him. And, you know, like, the tournament's in good hands. Like just love of the game, respect for the game. And then we get drafted together. And you just never know where something is going to come back around. Now, let's say I had been a jerk pointing in his face, saying certain things, whatever it was. Like, that was never the story with me and Adam. But you never know how something comes back around. Right.
Well, the other part is, too, he was taken from a small school, taken that high, probably had, and a different-looking dude. He's kind of from, kind of got the backwoods look. And I imagine that he had a target on his head being in the NBA. Guys couldn't wait to try to test him at every turn. And that Bobcats team, well, I have to go back and really kind of look at it, but that wasn't exactly a talent-laden team at that point, right? I mean, it was a tough situation for a young guy with that much coming at him to be able to excel. He was one of those guys that was drafted high, but you needed to put him in just the right place for him to really make his mark. That's the way I would look at it.
Like I said, player development wasn't the same, and I think this slipped your mind. Hear me when I'm saying he was the last guy in the gym and the first guy out.
Yeah.
And we weren't babysat. We weren't like, hey, you guys get up some shots, you do this, this, and this. And I don't know if you remember, Adam Morrison had one of the most impressive summer leagues that anybody's ever had. And the dude just was like, I made it, I shut it down. And I actually like trained for the draft with Adam, and this dude was busting his behind.
Yeah.
And then he got to the league and it was just, oh, I'm cruising. But there was kind of like a lot of guys in the league. The league is more competitive now than it ever was. There's a lot of number of guys that cruised in the league like, I'm here. I'm content. My job's not going nowhere. Like, there's a lot of guys who did that, Rick. Probably the majority of the league didn't take the league serious. It was just a job. Now, man, every shot counts. Analytics, three-pointers. Like, dudes are grinding right now, or at least from a player development aspect. Like, you see the game has really changed. But if Adam had, like, a coach on him, like, yo, get your butt in the gym. And then by the time they're like, Adam, you get in the gym, it was too late. But there's an element of like, bro, do I need to stand over you?
Yeah. Yeah. He also, when he finished up his career with the Lakers, ended up winning a ring with them, wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time, took a lot of abuse for being a guy that was drafted as high as he was and not, not getting any run and then ending up with a ring. And he was the third pick. But I talked to him and I talked to guys from that team. He was the same way then. He didn't care that he was the number 3 pick and people talked about him as if he was a bust. He wanted to be the best practice player that he could be. He thought, that's how I can contribute to this Lakers team. I'm going to find a way to do it. And I have all the respect in the world for guys who do that. Because, as you know, for 95% of the guys who get drafted, it's all about fit. It's all about landing in the right place at the right time with the right team, with the right coach. And if you do, then your chances of success are better than not. And if you don't, there are countless guys that are examples of that. And I think Adam, in a lot of ways, was one of those.
What was tough was in his second year, he tore his ACL. Mm-hmm. And, the irony was, we just came through this monstrous training camp and everybody this defense. And he goes to close out in the corner against the Lakers, ironically, slides his feet and tears his ACL.
Yeah.
And Adam was like working hard on defense. He was committed his second year. He was embarrassed after the first year. And I'll never forget, he's crying back there in the locker room. And Bernie Bickersnack goes, man, I didn't draft you to play defense. What the heck are you doing? Yeah. Like joking with him. But he started to push his body, And he was never used to doing stuff like that. And it caught up to him. And then what was really sad is when things turned around for the Lakers, because the Lakers wanted Adam to play well. This was a big deal. He tore his knee again, tore the knee up again. But he, like you said, he had really turned things around by that time, and he got hurt. Listen, man. For those who don't know, this dude was going to be an all-star in the league if he had. People say he was he had the it factor, and he just ended up getting hurt, and he went to a bad system, and he did not have the correct mentorship around him. And I'll share this because I feel like Adam shared it, but like he has some mental stuff going on, and not like he's crazy or anything, but like anybody, depression, whatever. Like people go through stuff, and like you don't see that stuff on the outside, but the resources aren't there in the league like they are now, man.
That's great insight. By the way, there were a dozen guys from that 2006 NBA draft who had double-digit careers. Ryan Hollins was one of them. And there were only 2 guys from the second round that year that had double-digit careers. Do you know who the other one is with you?
Millsap.
That is correct, Paul Millsap. But by and large, the top of that draft was not a great draft. And this is always the tricky part. Like you look at what Kyle Lowry does, what has done, and Rajon Rondo has done, obviously, and those guys were later first-round picks. Paul Millsap, you putting in 10 years. Who else? Rudy Gay's had a nice career. J.J. Redick's had a nice career. But when you get drafted high, this is my thing always is a guy's picked in the top 5 and he doesn't turn out to be what everybody attaches to being a top 5 pick. That's not always on the dude. That may be, it's as much the responsibility of the team that took him and then to put him in a position to succeed. And I feel as if it's always just heaped upon that guy like he didn't live up to what he was supposed to be. In some cases, yeah, maybe. But as you pointed out, and as I know as well, Adam Morrison wasn't one of those guys. Tyrese Thomas might have been one of those guys who went after him, right? But
what's crazy? I had a hit list on guys, but I knew they weren't. I felt like they weren't what they were supposed to be. A lot of those dudes. It was crazy they didn't last. And what's wild, Rick, is I was told from my agent I could go anywhere from 10th to 50th. And obviously I ended up going 50th. But I'm looking at the other guys that they drafted, and I was like, this guy's horrible. There's no way he's better than me. And they weren't. But you tell me what's the relevance of being drafted? Because the work starts after that.
Yeah. The only thing in being a first-round pick is that it gives you a little more of a leash. It gives you a little more room because they've made an investment in you. Yep. Right?
Yep. I think Adam even got paid by Washington. Washington picked him back up. Like, you're just going to have more leash as that draft pick. And that's what did bite me, through my career. That was tough because you got to level up. You got to shake off that stigma of being, a late pick because they already pinched you. You're a bench guy. You're whatever. Like guys like Gilbert Arenas that were drafted later on and then blow up Carlos Boozer. Like, it's a lot for you to kill the league because you're not penciled in to do it.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Ultimately, when it comes to the tournament and your experience with it, how valuable was it in terms of preparation for playing at the next level? Did it do anything for you? Say you'd never played in the tournament. Did it add anything?
For me, playing in the tournament was big because it was confidence. Like I had went to a place in my career that I had never been, and obviously in Charlotte, they were kind of blowing the team up. They were changing stuff around, and the mentality wasn't to win. And Bernie Bickerstaff was just kind of like, you guys do whatever you want to do. Play hard. That's the goal. Straight up. And the management wasn't great there at the time, but the goal was to get draft picks.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't know what the NBA quite was, but it put me in the mentality just like like I was in a zone, bro. I was willing to do anything like to be a pro. You know what I'm saying? So while the skill set wasn't there, while the years weren't there, the understanding wasn't there, like my like I was on one. Like mentally I was locked in. I could not have been more locked in.
Was Bernie the coach and GM at that time?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so.
I've never been a believer that one man can wear both hats and do it successfully. And I like Bernie. Bernie's been good to me. I covered the Wizards when he was the coach there. I'm good. I'd say good friends, or I have a good relationship with his son JB, and I'm glad that he's gotten another chance to try to make something happen with the Grizzlies, that they've stuck by him. But all that said, there is no way in hell you can do both jobs.
Well, Bernie, man, I'm always be thankful to the man who drafted me. It was crazy. He was never supposed to come back, I think, the second or third year, and he didn't want to do it. Like, why you guys keep making me do this? But this is the real OG move right here. Bernie is such an OG because he wanted to train John Blair to be a head coach.
Okay.
John Blair did all of our scouting reports, all of them.
Huh.
Every game, like. To give you an example, for a scouting report, you have 5 or 6 coaches that will do the scouts for all 82 teams.
Yeah, they split them up.
And you split
Everybody's
them up.
got their assignment.
John Blair had all 82 teams.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what I'm saying?
Really?
So it was like, okay, you want to be a head coach? Like, do your work. Do your work. That's the type of work ethic John Blair Bickerstaff has. JB has.
That is insane.
Great basketball mind.
That is
and then
crazy.
Somehow John Blair was associate head coach. So Bernie, bro, you'll laugh. Bernie kicked himself out of, you might have to look this up, Rick, at least 10 to 15 games, if not more. And John Blair.
That is an OG. Oh, my goodness.
And we're stinking it up. And just Bernie's just fighting for us. He's just fighting. Oh, I love Bernie to death, bro.
You know what?
None
of this
Bernie
surprises me. He's like that. He is clever.
If I ever see Bernie Bickerstaff, I'm running over to him immediately. It's the immediate, how you doing, coach? How are you? Thank you.
He still calls me young fella. How you doing there, young fella?
Yep.
He's. I think he's an advisor for the Cavaliers still. He's on that active retirement. That's what he's on.
Oh yeah,
he's in a good spot.
He should be paid. He should be paid to travel and do whatever he wants. You know, never have to work another day in his life, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I teased this podcast by saying that we would find out who your pick to win it all this year is, but you haven't even done a bracket yet. Do you even know who the favorites are?
Where's my link at?
None of the teams.
I'm doing it right now.
None of the teams that you did games. I mean, you actually did college games, but none of the teams that you did games.
Loyola, Pepperdine, San Diego State.
Yeah, none of those made the tournament. Anybody else?
Who else have I missed? Yeah, I had a couple college games. You know, people don't understand how hard college games are because there's so many kids.
Yeah.
And like, that's the hardest, any show, well, other than First Take, that's the hardest work I have to do is when I call a college game.
You know,
because I got to know what I'm talking about, bro.
You know what the other one, the other tough one is? Summer League. I did sideline for Summer League one summer. Oh man.
I think that's on par though.
Because people change. But here's, and maybe it is, because Summer League, people are changing their rosters. Like guys suddenly show up and score 15. You got to interview them after the game. You're like, this guy wasn't even on the roster at the beginning of the game. Where did he come from?
Yeah, those two are right on par. So. When I look, bro, when I do, I'll show you a picture of it. Like when I call a college game, I create my own board. Like it's crazy. Sure. And then I have to write out because I just don't play with it. When I do the Clippers, I don't come in with anything but my little pen and paper.
Right.
You know them. You know the pros. Right. I've seen the same guys for the last 20 years. I know what Vince Carter does. I know his scouting report. You know what I'm saying? Like there's only a few young guys who get in and play, and you find out who they are pretty quickly. But as far as college, I'm square one.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah. You have a base of baked-in knowledge when it comes to the NBA. You can riff. You got plenty of resources there to draw upon. But yeah, college, you got to be on point. You got to do your homework. Got to do your homework. All right, that does it for this episode, an all NCAA tourney episode. And for those who have not checked it out, please go to @BucherFriends. You'll find, or on my Twitter feed, you'll find a invitation to the bracket challenge. Like I said, we have some cash prizes. Please come join us. And we're going to get Ryan Hollins to fill out one. Gary Owen, the comedian, is in. Will Blackman, who joins me on Mondays and Tuesdays, he's in. John Libby, our producer. And I know a number of people have already signed up. So join the fun, and who knows, you might win a couple bucks in the process. Also, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, we would love a rating to know how you think we're doing. You don't have to leave a comment. Can if you want, but just punch the stars and let us know what you think of the show. And if you tweet that rating to us, just screenshot it and tweet it to @BucherFriends, you'll be eligible to win some prizes, which I believe we're giving the next little swag bag out in a matter of days, potentially. All right. In our next podcast, we will get back. Obviously, the NCAA tourney will be going, and we'll check in on that. But I want to get into the Milwaukee Bucks. Lost to the Cavs the other night. They've lost to the Suns twice. Is there anything to be taken from that, or is it just they can't? It's a matchup, whatever. We'll discuss that. 76ers finally beat the Celtics, and we need to check in with our big man on how the big men in Golden State are doing. The return of Andrew Bogut, and obviously the addition of DeMarcus Cousins. Are these going to be valuable, meaningful down the stretch, or are we going to see the Warriors return to their small ball roots? All of that in our next podcast. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.